Picture this, it's 410 AD. Alaric's Visigoth warriors are torching Rome's greatest temples. Senators flee in terror. The Eternal City is burning. Citizens scream as barbarian axes shatter marble statues of Jupiter and Mars. The Roman Empire, master of the known world for 1,000 years, is dying before your eyes. But here's what will blow your mind. What if I told you Rome didn't actually fall that day? What if the greatest empire in human history pulled off the most brilliant survival trick ever conceived? What if, instead of dying, Rome simply changed costumes? Here's the shocking truth they don't teach you in history class. The Colosseum gave way to cathedrals, togas became priestly robes, and imperial thrones transformed into papal seats. The empire that once ruled through sword and shield began ruling through scripture and sacrament. But wait, it gets even more incredible. What if every time you walk into a church, attend mass, or see a pope on television, you're actually witnessing the Roman Empire in disguise? What if Christianity didn't just replace Rome? It became Rome, adopting its structure, stealing its symbols, and hijacking its power. You're watching Truth Through Time, the only channel brave enough to expose the conspiracies hiding in plain sight throughout history. I need you to smash that subscribe button right now because what you're about to discover will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Christianity and the fall of Rome. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because these ancient echoes of power reach every corner of the globe, and I want to know how far this truth is spreading. Now buckle up, because we're about to uncover the greatest institutional transformation in human history, how Christianity didn't just survive Rome's collapse. It absorbed Rome's DNA and became the new empire. Part 1. From Ashes to Absolute Power. Let me paint you a picture of chaos that will make your skin crawl. By the end of the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire wasn't just declining, it was disintegrating in the most brutal way imaginable. Alaric's Visigoths didn't just sack Rome in 410 AD, they burned entire neighborhoods, slaughtered civilians, and desecrated sacred temples. The Vandals under Genseric came back in 455 AD like vultures, stripping gold from palace walls and carrying away senators' wives as slaves. But here's where the story takes an absolutely mind-bending turn. While emperors fled and governors abandoned their posts, while great cities like Milan and Carthage became ghost towns haunted by wild dogs, one institution was not just surviving, it was thriving. The Christian Church was quietly positioning itself to inherit an empire. Edward Gibbon, the legendary historian who spent decades studying Rome's collapse, made this startling observation in his masterpiece The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. The Church outlived the empire by wearing its robes. Think about that for a moment. While barbarians were literally tearing down Roman civilization, Christian bishops were trying on the emperor's clothes. Here's the archaeological proof that will make you question everything. When Ravenna fell to the Ostrogoths, Christian builders didn't demolish the Roman structures. They gutted them and rebuilt them as churches. The magnificent Basilica of San Vitale, constructed in the 6th century, was built using marble pillars literally torn from abandoned Roman forums. The mosaics inside don't just depict Christian scenes, they show Jesus and his disciples wearing imperial purple, holding Roman scepters, and sitting on thrones identical to those used by Caesar Augustus. But the most shocking evidence comes from the bishops themselves. Augustine of Hippo, writing his masterwork City of God between 413 to 426 AD, wasn't just defending Christianity against pagan critics, he was blueprinting how the church could replace imperial administration. His personal letters, particularly Epistula 228, detail how he organized grain distribution during Hippo's devastating 429 AD famine, feeding thousands using Roman logistical systems. Here's what they don't want you to realize. While Rome burned, Christian bishops were already studying imperial administration manuals, learning how to collect taxes, manage territories, and control populations. But if you think that's shocking, wait until you see what happened next. Because the bishops didn't just replace governors, they made themselves more powerful than emperors ever dreamed of being. Part 2. The Ultimate Power Grab. What I'm about to tell you sounds like a political thriller, but it's documented historical fact. By the 6th century, the Bishop of Rome wasn't just leading prayers, he was negotiating with barbarian kings as an equal. Picture this scene. In 452 AD, near the shores of Lake Garda, Pope Leo I meets face-to-face with Attila the Hun, the most feared warrior in the known world, the man they called the Scourge of God. Here's what's absolutely incredible. Leo doesn't bring an army. He doesn't offer gold or territory. He walks up to this mass-murdering warlord with nothing but words, and somehow convinces Attila to turn around and spare Rome. Prosper of Aquitaine's contemporary chronicle records that Attila's own generals were stunned when their leader abandoned the planned sack of the Eternal City. But here's the power move that changes everything. Leo wasn't just protecting Rome, he was demonstrating that the church had inherited something more valuable than legions, the power of imperial authority itself. Check out this mind-blowing detail. The title Pontifex Maximus, Supreme Pontiff, wasn't invented by Christians. It was the most sacred title of Roman emperors, worn by Augustus, Trajan, and Marcus Aurelius. According to J.N.D. Kelly's definitive Oxford Dictionary of Popes, this imperial title was quietly transferred to the Bishop of Rome during the 4th century. The Pope literally stole the emperor's job title. But the institutional takeover goes even deeper. Those famous Roman roads that once carried legions across Europe? By 590 AD, Pope Gregory I was using them to send letters coordinating disaster relief after devastating floods, managing territories from Britain to North Africa with the precision of a Roman general commanding military campaigns. Here's the linguistic smoking gun. Latin didn't survive as the Church's language by accident. When Jerome completed his Vulgate Bible translation in 405 AD, he wasn't just creating a holy book, he was ensuring that Roman administrative language would dominate Christian worship for the next 1,500 years. Every priest saying Mass in Latin was unconsciously perpetuating Roman imperial culture. Historian Peter Brown, in his groundbreaking Rise of Western Christendom, puts it perfectly. The Church didn't just inherit Rome's infrastructure, prestige, and dreams, it became Rome in everything but name. But here's the question that will keep you awake tonight. If the Church became the new Roman Empire, what happened to all those Roman gods, Roman temples, and Roman traditions? The answer will shock you to your core. Part 3. Sacred Transformation, the greatest makeover in history. What I'm about to show you is the most systematic cultural transformation in human history, and it happened right under everyone's noses. Imagine walking through Rome in 600 AD. You'd see something that would make you question reality itself. Every single pagan temple, every shrine to Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Apollo was either destroyed or transformed into a Christian church. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. They weren't just converting buildings, they were hijacking an entire civilization's sacred architecture. The archaeological evidence is overwhelming. The Basilica of San Clemente, built in the 6th century, sits directly on top of a Mithraic temple where Roman soldiers once worshipped the sun god Mithras. Richard Krautheimer's definitive study Rome, Profile of a City reveals that Christians didn't just build over pagan sites. They deliberately incorporated Roman architectural elements, marble columns, and even decorative motifs into their churches. But here's the most audacious theft in architectural history. The Pantheon, Rome's most magnificent temple dedicated to all the gods, was converted into St. Mary's in 609 AD under Pope Boniface IV. They didn't tear it down, they claimed it. Those bronze roof tiles that once gleamed in honor of Roman deities? Melted down and used to build St. Peter's Basilica. And the underground secrets will blow your mind. When Vatican archaeologists excavated beneath St. Peter's in the 1940s, they discovered that Constantine's original basilica, started in 324 AD, was built directly over a Roman cemetery. They found Christian altars sitting on top of pagan tombstones. The holiest site in Christianity was literally constructed on the bones of Roman burial grounds. But the cultural hijacking goes way beyond architecture. Christians pulled off the most brilliant rebranding campaign in history by stealing Roman holidays and giving them Christian names. Saturnalia, Rome's biggest winter celebration, became Christmas by 354 AD according to the chronograph, a Christian overlay perfectly timed to the winter solstice. The spring festival of renewal became Easter. The summer harvest celebrations became feast days of saints. Here's what historians like Ramsay MacMullen document in Christianizing the Roman Empire. This wasn't accidental cultural blending, it was deliberate, systematic replacement designed to make Christianity feel familiar to Roman citizens. They were psychologically engineering mass conversion by making the new religion look like the old one in disguise. But perhaps the most brilliant part of this transformation was educational. Henri Moreau's comprehensive A History of Education in Antiquity reveals that Christian schools didn't just teach scripture, they taught Roman literature, Roman rhetoric, and Roman administrative skills. They were creating a generation of Christian leaders who thought like Romans, organized like Romans, and governed like Romans. As Moreau puts it, Rome's stones were literally rearranged into ecclesia, a complete architectural, cultural, and institutional rebirth. But here's the terrifying question. If Christianity absorbed so much of Roman culture, Roman power structures, and Roman imperial ambitions, what happened to the original message of Jesus? And what price did the Church pay for this incredible transformation? Part 4. The New Roman Empire, Christianity gets an imperial upgrade. December 25, 800 AD. St. Peter's Basilica, Rome. This is the moment that changes everything. Pope Leo III places a golden crown on Charlemagne's head and declares him Emperor of the Romans, the first person to hold that title since 476 AD. According to the Royal Frankish Annals, this wasn't just a religious ceremony, it was the rebirth of the Roman Empire under Christian management. But here's what they don't tell you about this coronation. It was based on the most successful forgery in human history. The donation of Constantine, a document that supposedly gave the Pope the right to crown emperors, was completely fabricated. Lorenzo Valla proved it was a fake in 1440, but for 600 years, this forged document gave the Church the legal justification to claim authority over every European king and emperor. Think about the audacity of this claim. The Church wasn't just saying they had spiritual authority, they were claiming the right to make and unmake political rulers. They had transformed from a persecuted religious minority into the ultimate imperial power brokers. The legal system reveals the most stunning transformation. Canon law, codified in documents like the Decretum Gratiani in 1140 AD, wasn't just religious regulation, it was Roman law with a Christian face. Harold J. Behrman's masterwork Law and Revolution demonstrates that church courts used Roman legal procedures, Roman concepts of evidence, and Roman punishment structures. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Church councils like the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD functioned exactly like Roman senates. Bishops debated, voted, and issued decrees that carried the force of imperial law. These weren't just religious gatherings, they were legislative sessions for the new Christian empire. And the organizational genius is breathtaking. Monastic orders, particularly the Benedictines, operated with military precision that would make Roman generals proud. Adalbert de Voges' analysis of the rule of Saint Benedict reveals organizational charts, command structures, and disciplinary systems that mirror Roman military organization. These monks weren't just praying, they were functioning as the intellectual and administrative backbone of the new empire. But here's the most brilliant part of this imperial transformation asterisk: instead of conquering territories with legions, the Church conquered them with missionaries. The expansion strategy was identical: Britain, St. Augustine in 597 AD, Germany, St. Boniface in the 8th century, Eastern Europe, St. Cyril and Methodius in the 9th century. But instead of leaving behind Roman governors, they left behind Christian bishops who reported directly to Rome. The result? An empire larger than anything Rome ever achieved, unified not by roads and legions, but by shared beliefs and ecclesiastical hierarchy. But this incredible success came with a dark secret that would eventually tear the Christian world apart. The question that haunts this transformation: what happens when a religion of humility and service adopts the power structures of history's most ruthless empire? Part 5. Imperial Echoes in Vatican Halls. Walk into the Vatican today, and you're walking through a Roman imperial palace that never stopped functioning. The Codex Vaticanus, a 4th century manuscript containing some of the oldest biblical texts, sits in Vatican libraries alongside thousands of Roman documents, imperial correspondence, and administrative records. The Vatican didn't just preserve Christian history, It became the keeper of Roman imperial archives. Here's something that will make you see papal ceremonies completely differently. The fisherman's ring, worn by every pope, functions exactly like the imperial seal rings used by Roman emperors. According to art historian Erwin Panofsky's analysis in early Netherlandish painting, the papal ring carries the same legal authority, the same symbolic power, and even similar decorative motifs as the rings worn by Caesar Augustus and his successors. But the artistic transformation reveals the deepest level of Roman absorption. When Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling between 1508 to 1512, he wasn't just creating Christian art, he was creating a Roman imperial vision with Christian characters. Art historian Charles de Tolnay's analysis reveals that Michelangelo replaced Roman emperors with Hebrew prophets, but kept the same architectural grandeur, the same sense of imperial majesty, and the same overwhelming display of power that characterized Roman imperial art. The economic system proves the institutional continuity. Medieval pilgrimages, like the Via Francigena route established in the 9th century, functioned exactly like Roman road systems. Diana Webb's research in medieval European pilgrimage shows that pilgrimage routes brought more economic benefit to church territories than Roman trade routes ever brought to imperial provinces. Pilgrims from Canterbury to Constantinople brought gold, silver, and political influence directly to church coffers. And the relic system? Pure Roman imperial theater. St. Peter's chains, venerated since the 4th century according to the Liber Pontificalis, replaced Roman military trophies as objects of imperial display. Instead of exhibiting conquered enemy weapons, the church displayed holy relics that drew crowds, inspired awe, and generated revenue. But here's the most stunning evidence of institutional continuity. The church's expansion strategy perfectly mirrored Roman imperial expansion. Just as Rome sent governors to Britain, Gaul, and Spain, the church sent archbishops to Canterbury, Paris, and Toledo. Just as Roman administrators reported to the emperor, Christian bishops reported to the pope. The organizational chart was identical, only the titles had changed. Roland Oliver's African Middle Ages documents the same pattern in Africa, where Roman administrative territories became Christian dioceses, Roman tax collection systems became church tithe collection, and Roman legal courts became ecclesiastical courts. This wasn't cultural influence, this was institutional possession. Christianity hadn't just survived Rome's collapse, it had performed the greatest corporate takeover in human history. But as we're about to see, this incredible success came at a cost that would haunt the church for centuries and eventually trigger the greatest religious revolution in European history. Part 6. The Price of Imperial Power. By the 9th century, the church had achieved something that would have made Roman emperors jealous. But success bred the very corruption that had destroyed Rome itself. Simony, the buying and selling of church offices, became so common that it functioned like a stock market for spiritual positions. Orderic Vitalis, the 12th century chronicler, documented how Pope John XII sold bishoprics for gold in 955 AD, turning sacred offices into commercial transactions. The church was literally auctioning off salvation. But the ultimate expression of imperial ambition came with the Crusades. When Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade in 1095 AD, he wasn't just calling for religious war, he was claiming the right to mobilize European armies for papal objectives. According to Jonathan Riley Smith's comprehensive study The Crusades, these religious wars cost approximately 1.7 million lives and drained European treasuries for the next 200 years. Here's what's absolutely chilling. The Crusades used Roman military terminology, Roman logistical systems, and Roman conquest strategies. Crusaders called themselves soldiers of Christ using the same Latin phrase, milites Christi, that Roman legions had used to describe imperial service. The church had become a military empire that happened to use religious language. The Great Schism of 1054 reveals the ultimate cost of imperial ambition. When the Eastern and Western churches split, it wasn't primarily about theology, it was about papal claims to universal authority that directly mirrored Roman imperial claims. Stephen Runciman's The Eastern Schism demonstrates that the split occurred because the Pope of Rome claimed the same absolute authority over all Christians that Roman emperors had claimed over all subjects. By the 14th century, The institutional corruption was so obvious that reformers were explicitly comparing the Church to the decadent Roman Empire it had replaced. When Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses in 1517, his most damning accusation wasn't about theology, it was about power. As Luther's scholar Heiko Obermann documents in his biography, Luther's central charge was that Rome once crucified Christ. Now it sells him. The irony is breathtaking. In becoming the heir to Roman power, the Church had also inherited Roman corruption, Roman ambition, and Roman imperial arrogance. The religion that began with a carpenter's son preaching humility had become an empire that would make Caesar jealous. But here's what's remarkable. Despite centuries of corruption, scandal, and institutional failure, the Church survived every crisis, adapted to every challenge, and maintained its power through every transformation. Just like Rome itself, the Church proved that institutions can outlive their original purposes and reinvent themselves for each new era. The Eternal Empire. Today, as you sit watching this video, the Roman Empire is still functioning. It just wears different clothes. When a pope speaks ex cathedra, using the infallibility doctrine established at Vatican I in 1870, he's exercising the same absolute authority that Roman emperors claimed through divine mandate. When the Church celebrates Easter according to calculations established at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, it's following a calendar system that blends Roman astronomy with Hebrew tradition, exactly as documented in Eusebius' Life of Constantine. Those purple robes worn by Catholic bishops? Direct descendants of senatorial dress, as documented by John Moorhead in The Roman Empire Divided. That hierarchical structure from pope to cardinal to archbishop to priest? A perfect mirror of Roman administrative hierarchy from emperor to senator to governor to local official. Here's the final revelation that ties everything together. The Roman Empire never fell. It evolved. It traded military conquest for spiritual conquest, physical territories for mental territories, and sword-based power for faith-based power. In doing so, it created something more durable than any empire in human history. The empire became the Church not through conquest, but through conversion, not by destroying Christianity, but by absorbing it so completely that the two became indistinguishable. Rome didn't die in 476 AD. It just changed its name to Catholic Church and kept running the world. This is truth through time, and what you've just witnessed should fundamentally change how you see both Christianity and the Roman Empire. If this episode completely blew your mind, and I know it did, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell right now. We're building an army of truth seekers who refuse to accept the sanitized versions of history they teach in schools and churches. Comment below and tell me, what Roman custom do you see surviving in modern Christianity? I read every single comment, and your insights help shape future episodes. Subscribe now, keep digging for truth, and remember, history isn't what they taught you in Sunday school. The real story is far more fascinating, far more complex, and far more revealing than they ever wanted you to know. This is truth through time. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep watching. Because the truth isn't buried, it's just wearing different clothes. Subscribe and tap the bell icon to walk with us through powerful stories of faith and history. Thumbs up like if this episode touched you. Speech balloon comment to share your thoughts or reflections in comment section.